What up, y'all? What up, y'all? Good morning. Happy Friday, as they say. Though Fridays mean nothing to me. There's no such thing as a day in the week in my life. It's like every day is literally the same or close to the same. Very similar. Let's put it that way. Very similar. Quick show today. I do have to run to an appointment, so I'm up against it, but wanted to hop in quickly. Obviously, a lot of news is going to hinge, or a lot of the looking forward stuff is going to hinge on the status of Caitlyn Clark and whether she plays or not against the Wings tonight. Obviously, I'm sure we'll get an update on that soon. You know, if it were up to me, I would err on the side of caution. You do not want Clark to come back and suffer a more serious injury. That is what concerns me the most in this. But at the same time, I would have considered sitting Caitlyn Clark yesterday against the Sparks simply for load management regardless, right? Like regardless of whether she was dealing with an actual ailment or not. I looked at the schedule and I thought, man, she should be out of that game. I would expect her to be out tonight against Dallas, but there's always the possibility since they only listed her as day-to-day, and that was the front end of a back-to-back. So we'll get to that. But regardless, the takeaways with the Fever, whether Clark is in the lineup or out of the lineup, remain the same, right? Like whether she plays tonight or not, we've seen enough to see what they look like with her in the lineup and with her out of the lineup, and just how big a difference it makes. And look, anytime you're that dependent on one player, it cannot be the best for you. You know, like there's a gift and a curse to it. The gift being this player is Caitlyn Clark. She's as generational as she is. She's as impactful as she is, as popular as she is. It raises the entire franchise, the entire league, and the quality of the team. But the downside, of course, is you take that away and all of that goes away as well. And that's what the Fever are dealing with, particularly with a player who is as responsible for as much offense as Caitlyn Clark is for the Indiana Fever, as much creation, because we can talk about her shooting slump, but regardless of her shooting slump, the attention that she draws makes such a difference for the team. She has to be guarded like 35 feet away from the basket. And there's extra defensive help sent her way. That changes the dynamics for everybody else on the floor. You could see it through Aaliyah Boston. You know, Aaliyah Boston has taken a leap this season. I'm not taking credit away from Aaliyah Boston, who has been terrific. You know, and what she did last night, pushing the ball in transition, is another step in her development. I think shooting the three is another step in her development. But if you look at the numbers, and Lou Orlando on Indiana Fever on SI put this together this morning, you can go look at it and just the field goal attempts and the points per game drop. So with Clark in the lineup, Boston is scoring 18.6 points per game. With Clark sidelined, that's 11.2 points per game. So her scoring drops by 7 points a game. Her field goal, percentage it's not as big a drop, but the attempts that she gets fall off the map. She's taking 5 fewer field goal attempts per game without Clark in there. So those things make a significant difference in the production, because half, Clark's assists, the lion's share of them go to Aaliyah Boston. She sets her up. 40 of her 80 assists this year have gone to Aaliyah Boston. Boston averages 13.1 field goal attempts per game with Clark, 8.2 without Clark. So you see just through that one player, the impact. Then there is also the Stephanie White conversation that I saw yesterday. And I guess my counter to that is, what would you have had Stephanie White do instead? What would you have her do instead? Because to me, the coach put the 5 best players on the floor at the end of the game. She had Ari McDonald, who I think the bright side to Ari McDonald is to this is that I can't wait to see what McDonald does with Caitlin Clark. For all the people complaining about the Fever playing slow, I bet you they're the fastest paced team in the league once Caitlin Clark is back for the duration of the season, especially with McDonald in there. I think McDonald can help Clark play off the ball more, which is necessary for this team, in my opinion. They need Clark off the ball more. Too often she's being hounded so far up and being grabbed and it just exerts so much energy that she can rest on the floor a little bit when she's off the ball and just get easier shots. All of her threes are self-created off the bounce. Get her some clean looks to get her going. Then, of course, give her the rock and let her cook. No one's saying otherwise. But I do think that was, that is a positive. Because I think that from a 1-to-1 swap for this team, I think Ari McDonald for DeWanna Bonner is a win. Given how Bonner was producing and given how McDonald fits and fills a need. So Clark coming back is domino number one. Domino number two is somehow addressing, and I know people are going to ask me who. I don't have the answer for you. I'm not a scout. I don't know who's going to get waived. All that stuff. Because the Fever need a forward in the worst way. And that was the problem with the situation last night, where they had all the smalls on the floor and they were getting crushed on the boards. And you could have gone, okay, put Natasha Howard back in the game, but she just hasn't been good enough. So it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation for Stephanie White there. I would call it a catch-22, right? Because I think she had her 5 best players on the floor, but the 5 best players are too small. And they got beat on the boards. And there you have it. So I mean, it's easy to crash out and blame the coach every time, but I just, what would the coach have done? What should she have done differently? Tell me that. She's missing the best player, and she's got no option in the front court. No option in the front court. I mean, Lexi Hull hustles her ass off and is a big-time player. Sophie Cunningham is actually a really good athlete. For her, Sophie, by the way, let's keep it real for a second. Her shooting has not been good enough. She needs to pick that up. But I never harp generally too much on shooters because I look at their numbers, and you would expect that to, it's like the Caitlin Clark shooting slump or Kelsey Mitchell shooting poorly earlier in the year. You expect that to change and go back to the normal production. But Sophie Cunningham needs to be better shooting the ball to be fully effective. But she's a heck of an athlete and has a lot of size at her position. But beyond that, Kelsey Mitchell is small. Ari McDonald is small. So you're already in a bit of a conundrum there in the backcourt. Clark is a big guard. People don't give enough credit to how big Clark is and how much she helps with rebounding. Clark is a rebounder too on the floor. And then beyond that, Brianna Turner is a 0. So you want her in the game? Michaela Timpson, I want to see get more minutes. She should certainly play over Turner because she has the potential. But let's be real, she's not there yet. She played 5 minutes and had 1 rebound, nothing else in the stat sheet. No points, no steals, no blocks. Missed both her free throws. Sydney Colson's another story, but that's another guard. It doesn't really matter for the purposes of what I'm saying right now. Bonner's gone. And then there's Howard, who can't catch or spread the floor. So what would you like them to do? What would you like the coach to do? That's on the front office. That's on the front office. So there's the situation, I think, with the Indiana Fever. I don't, to me, it boils down to two simple things. Number one, Clark's health. Number two, finding somebody to help in the front court. Because you can everybody can go, Stephanie White sucks, and the Fever need to upgrade or all that stuff. Why? How? Show me what Stephanie White, pointed out. What's the problem? What was the issue? She went small. What would you have done instead? What was the mistake? I mean, the downside is this is now a pattern. The bright side is that the Fever, don't continue to have double-digit leads. And let's look at the team stats again. I know this has got to be annoying because it's not showing yet in the results. The Indiana Fever are still the fourth best team in the league by net rating. And that's with Caitlyn Clark missing half the season. And by the way, when you guys talk about pace and everything, everybody likes to talk about pace and how fast the Fever are playing. The Fever are the fourth fastest team in the league. They're tied. They're in a virtual tie for second for fastest team in the league by the way that they play. And that's with Clark missing half a season. So there is no question in my mind the Fever will be the fastest team in the league once Clark is out there consistently, assuming that she's out there consistently. The Fever are going to be the fastest team in the league. And the data still shows they are one of the best teams in the league overall. It's not showing in the record yet. Eventually, you are what your record says you are, as the saying goes. But those things are worth noting right now. They're worth noting. That's the data that tells you these, those are predictive statistics. It's a long season. The Indiana Pacers were 10-15 at one point in the season. And they made the NBA Finals. Remember, the Fever last year were way worse than they are right now. How many games have they played right now? Were they 7-8? So 15 games? What were they through 15 games last year? 5-10. So still well ahead of that pace. It hinges on Caitlyn Clark's health. Let's not get it twisted. Then you got the Paige Beckers matchup tonight, or what was going to be the Paige Beckers matchup tonight. Let's show a little love to Paige Beckers, who's had a very, very good rookie season so far, averaging almost 18 points a game, 6 assists, 2 steals. My issue with Paige, my biggest critique is the 3 ball. I think she needs to attempt more and hit more threes. And she also doesn't get to the free throw line or the cup very often. I think those are the biggest flaws in her game, is the rim and outside. Everything in between, she's exemplary. And she knows she carries herself in a tremendous fashion. Paige is a true pro. And she was prepared for that coming out of UConn. She was prepared for that coming out of UConn. And I'm sure some of the people saw what Paige Beckers had to say yesterday. But here it is for you. Talking about Caitlyn Clark. I thought this was cool, what she said, because it's true.
When you look at Caitlyn, the way she's had to deal with media, you kind of dealt with it this year. Have you learned anything from the way she's dealt with it maybe last year?
I would just say, she handles it with grace, and the pressure that she's put on every single night to perform at the level that she does, it's inhumane, really, to expect people to be perfect and to not have off games or off nights. And if she doesn't go 8 for 10 from 3, people are questioning things. It's unfair to have to deal with that, but I'm sure she has a great team around her and great people to help her. And I know she's a great person at dealing with it, and just tuning out the noise and just continue to be there for herself and for her team. But I mean, the expectations, and it's tough when you listen to it. So I'm sure she has a great way of tuning it out.
Do you feel that pressure as well? like the 8 for 10 type of expectations?
More, it's like for me, it's like the pressure I put on myself. I'm a perfectionist. I think every shot I shoot should go in. So when it doesn't, but then also, like she talked about, just being able to give yourself grace and know that you are not perfect, and there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be good games. There's going to be bad games. But as long as you keep it forward, keep pushing, and keep learning and keep growing from game to game, that's all you can ask for.
That was Paige Beckers. And I see some comments already saying that's the fans that are putting pressure. The pressure on Caitlyn Clark comes from every direction. Yes, some of it's from her fans. Some of it's from her haters. Some of it is from people who never watch a professional WNBA basketball game. I mean, she's been talked about on CNN, on Outkick, on ESPN, on YouTube, on every single platform for a year plus straight, 2 years, more so than any athlete I've maybe ever seen. The only thing that's even close is LeBron James, from what I've seen. So there is a crazy amount of pressure on Caitlyn Clark, and it comes from a myriad of different directions. She's also the only player I've ever seen be directly responsible for an entire league and its success. You know, when she was out, the numbers fell by over 50%. That's just the truth. There's a level of pressure that comes with that. You know, all those people that bought tickets to the Wings game, all those people that bought tickets, you don't think she's thinking, I need to show out and play for them? All those people that bought tickets to the All-Star game even coming up. You know, with great power comes great responsibility, as it said in Spider-Man. But let's not pretend that doesn't exist for Caitlyn Clark, or that it's just manufactured by fans. It's not. This is what we are dealing with in Caitlyn Clark is a once in a lifetime phenomenon. Truth of the matter. Full stop. And one other thing I wanted to get to quickly before I get to the comments. Remember, I have an abbreviated show today. I have an appointment to get to in just over a half hour. So trying to fit it all in. Member chats, super chats will go first. But I haven't heard anybody talk about this. And I think it's worth talking about. I know, like, in the WNBA, like, everything's a delicate flower. And don't pick the delicate flower. But A'ja Wilson's also struggling, and no one's really talking about it relative to her normal production. Asia's points per game have fallen by 5 points per game, 6 points per game almost. Her field goal percentage is down 8%. Her rebounds are down almost 3 a game. Obviously, the Aces are not the same level team. And I've always had a few issues with Asia's game. I know, like, last year, you had to say she's the MVP no matter what. You can never say anything else. And she's the best player who ever lived and all that stuff. There's some flaws in her game to me. One being she's not a playmaker, right? So once some of that extra defensive attention comes her way, you can swarm her. 2, she relies, just like with Paige, I was saying before, she relies very heavily on jump shots. And when those aren't three, analytical basketball tells you want to force teams into the mid-range, right? Or long twos specifically. Players who can hit the mid-range, what the real value of that is because defenses are going to force you into that. So if you can still beat them there, that's where the mid-range really comes into play. Playoff basketball, tough defense, all that stuff. But when it's such a heavy part of a shot diet, if it's not going, that can be a problem. And A'ja Wilson is taking more field goals from 5 to 9 feet than she is from less than 5 feet. And if you add 10 to 14 feet and 15 to 19 feet in there, 3/4 of her shots are coming from that area. And her percentage is down precipitously in those areas. She sort of reminds me of, like, Chris Bosh sometimes in where she likes to operate on the floor. And that's where he did with Miami. And Asia's like that mid-range money shot. When that goes, nothing you can do about it. But when that stops falling, it's, apparent. And I think when you I mean, she's making some good passes out of that, but when you also take away the playmaking of the attention that Kelsey Plum draws, then that hurts it too, because Jewell Lloyd is not Kelsey Plum. And it's the same thing that happens with Aaliyah Boston without Caitlin Clark, where more defensive attention comes your way, just makes it tougher. Just makes it tougher. But we keep it a buck and 100. When Caitlin Clark struggled, when they lost that game to the Aces, I put that on Caitlin Clark. I think they lost that game because of Caitlin Clark. Not totally, but the biggest factor to me was Caitlin Clark. Those back-to-back turnovers to me was the biggest sequence of the game. I put that on Caitlin Clark. And it's fair to point out, A'ja Wilson's production is well below where it's been in the MVP season, probably for a myriad of reasons, but we don't have to tiptoe around it either. We can keep it a buck all around. There you have it. Please like, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. I see some comments about Angel Reese. Angel Reese is playing much better, no question. Props to Angel Reese. I've always been bullish on Angel Reese's potential as I got crushed for saying it, but like a star kind of role player. I think that's her. It's just like semantics, whether you I say role player because she shouldn't be the focal point of the offense, but her impact can be well beyond a role player. So you want to call it star, whatever you want to call it. But I've gotten crushed for that, but that's how I feel. And Angel is certainly been playing much better. Her field goal percentage is creeping up to where it was last year. Still could stand to be better, but certainly not in the depths of hell where it was earlier this year. And her rebounding is going back up. She's making more plays. She's versatile defensively. She plays hard as hell. So credit to Angel Reese while we're on the subject. Now let me get to the chats, super chats, comments. Shouts to a new member, Sue Ellen Buchanan. I'm going to organize a Zoom or a group chat for the members coming up soon. Maybe we do it monthly. We'll figure out exactly the cadence for it. But I want to offer some member perks, obviously, aside from just the fast pass in the comment section. Lauren Allen, do you think they listed groin because rest wouldn't go over well with fans or league? Just a thought, not saying she doesn't have some groin pain. So I saw her grab at it a little bit. So I do think it's been bothering her. But, I mean, yes, typically it does go over better with fans if there's a reason. Now, you don't want them to panic. But I was always marking that game on the calendar and the schedule. Always. Because of the way that the schedule was set up. So I don't think it's out of the question that it was more about resting her and load managing than a real injury. But at the same time, you got to err on the side of caution because all this stuff is in the left leg, and the body is a chain mechanism and everything like that. So you don't want her to come back for, I don't want to say it a meaningless regular season game, but a regular season game without too much meaning, and then throw the whole season in the trash. That's certainly something to keep an eye out for. Savage Coffee Tea. All things considered, the Fever were 7-7 this time last year with a healthy CC and none of the other noise. Physicality is way up this year. Teeth are being knocked out. Collapsed lung. The collapsed lung was a while ago, and that was a freak thing. It was Brianna Stewart diving to the floor. Total accident with Lexi held. But the Fever were not 7-7 at this point last year either. They were worse than that. Again, they were 7-10. after 17 games. So they had 10 losses by the time they got to 7 wins. They have 8 losses right now with 7 wins. So there's plenty of time to turn that around. What are they? They're 7-8, right? What's that? 15 games? After 15 games last year, they were 5-10. So certainly ahead of last year's pace, all things considered. Remember, chats, super chats go first. Again, going to be a quicker show today. But I think I hit the main points. We'll see what happens with So somebody help Brett out. Again, I don't know the ins. I think you might have to do it from the computer. But there is should be membership option there to join the channel. You'd be surprised, and I don't say this to make fun of anybody, but how the demographics of YouTube skew, like older sometimes, which I'm not saying you are old. I found it to be an interesting little anecdote when I looked at some of the returns on the numbers and the data. And I know people get mad at that. The pace stat is deceiving. The data is flawed. No, it isn't. The data says what it says. I mean, it's literally per 100 possessions. It says what it says. You could say it doesn't matter. You don't care. But it says what it says. And, of course, with Caitlyn Clark out of the lineup, it's going to be a huge difference. It comes down to those two things I said. They need Caitlyn Clark back and healthy. And they need to add some sort of forward who can produce and help. Something in the front court. Anything in the front court. But forgot to open my polar seltzer. Just a couple more minutes for today's show, guys. So get those member chats and super chats in. Appreciate Savage Coffee Tea, Lauren Allen, Sue Ellen Buchanan. And, the other thing about Caitlyn Clark is her demeanor is, no, just a kid from Brooklyn. The member is not being the same as a subscriber. But a member is like a paid membership, and a subscriber is just, anybody can subscribe, obviously. But I appreciate both, by the way. Please subscribe. I'm not saying that if you're a subscriber, it's a bad thing. It's certainly a good thing. Certainly a good thing. And I appreciate all the subscribers. And of course, all the members to the channel. It means everything to me, guys. What's up, Charles? Thanks, and have a great day. I'm not quite out yet, but like I said, I do have an appointment to get to, so I just have a few minutes here. My air conditioner is also broken, so that's no good. That is no good. No bueno. It was dumb hot here last week, too. Look, I think the front office has to come into question. I think the front office, the offseason has not been what we thought. And there's a glaring hole in the front court now from a production standpoint. The Bonner thing obviously didn't work out. And there was a playmaking gap. And, now they have a chance to fix it. But yeah, the front office should come under question. Farrell, I've seen all these comments about the fever. Like, I know there are a lot of Fever and Caitlin Clark haters in here too. Like, I get it. I hear you. But, you know, I've already told you what I think and feel and how I analyze the situation. I saw some people upset about we are old and have more money. There you go, Sue Ellen. That's the spirit. Thank you for joining. Andre says Angel Reese is the only player averaging a double-double. I have to look into that to fact check it, but it doesn't surprise me. Angels, look, I don't view things through the prism of Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese when I look at either player, guys. Of course, when they go head-to-head, there's a certain, and when there's comparisons, fine. But I feel like Angel Reese has done a lot of good this year and improve, and she doesn't get as much attention when she's doing the good things. Now, part of that is because of the Sky's struggles, but credit where it is due. I have nothing bad to say about the way Angel has been playing as of late. Nan P90 says Asia is a proven legend in the WNBA. That's where she has more leeway than Clark, who's still trying to prove herself. Oh, no, Clark already proved herself. I mean, Clark already has done historic things too. She hasn't won the titles and stuff or the MVPs and the hardware. I agree on the Asia point, but Clark ain't proven herself either. She's proven, and even proven players. I didn't say Asia Wilson sucks. I just pointed out that she hasn't been as good as normal, and that's. Or at least as good as, last year. And I'm not worried about hurting feelings about that. Like, a couple people have liked my Bosch Asia comparison. That's what I see. I see a lot of Chris Bosch. And I'm a fan of Chris Bosch, but also Asia's a really good defensive player. Let me point that out too. I'm talking on the offensive end. Segmag Solution says the thing I see is that teams seem to try to and take the air out of the ball in the fourth quarter, which is totally opposite of what got them the lead is coaching at this safe shot clock. Well, yeah, but it's also like if the other team is boarding the hell out of you, like, last night is they couldn't keep the Sparks off the glass. That makes a difference. Another compliment on my Bosch comparison. I mean, to be honest, I don't believe that Asia Wilson is the best player in the world. I don't believe that. Nafisa Collier has had the best season in the WNBA. Now she's been out with some injury. And y'all know what I think about Caitlin Clark. Bangs theory. Robin, you along with her rabid crowned her as the best player that ever lived. Give me a break. The pressure comes from you all. I mean, Caitlin Clark is the best player I've seen. What do you want me to tell you? That doesn't mean she has to address the history of racial tension in America because she's good at basketball. That doesn't mean that, she can't feel a certain way when the officials aren't properly officiating the game. That doesn't mean people aren't dissecting and talking. No one just said it's like LeBron had Chosen One. He was on the cover of Sports Illustrated with the Chosen One thing, right? And that, or you call yourself king. It's the same bullshit. Doesn't mean she doesn't face more pressure or undue scrutiny. I stand by what I've said about her. So take that. All right. In order for me to make my appointment, 90 more seconds, guys. Any other chats? I'm looking for them. Try to get to some other chats too. Best I can, sorting through here with considering I've got a lot of comments as usual. John, Fever need to sign a big right now. Otherwise, it's going to be a really long season. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to do about that. Like, But they do. That is a glaring hole for the Indiana Fever. There's no question. And Natasha Howard has not been good enough. Obviously, the DeWanna Bonner thing was a failure. Got to be addressed. My MVP right now would be Nafisa. If I were voting, I think Caitlin Clark is the most valuable player in the league by the literal definition of it. But I have to start to see, like, Caitlin's shooting slump hurts her, and obviously the time she's missed hurts her. So if I were casting a vote for MVP, it would be Nafisa Collier. I do believe Caitlin Clark is the most valuable player in the league. Kevin says the season is falling apart so quickly, it's scary. I still see a lot of potential for the Fever. I think Ari McDonald is a big ad. They can get Ari on the court with Clark, and they can get somebody to round out that front court, whoever it is, whether it's developing Timpson, which I don't think is realistic from as fast as they need it, or any sort of signing. Emma Miesemann, I saw, has been brought up. That's the only name that gets brought up consistently. I think I saw Tulip say she would only go to a contender, but I'd still consider the Fever to be a contender, especially if you add a player like that. But regardless, they need they need help in the front court, and they need Caitlin Clark to be healthy. All right, y'all. That'll do it for me. Until the next one. Yeet.